people that you're associated with here at this camp, they're not here only because they're good players. They're here because they're excellent teachers. And this is about teaching and learning and performing. Those things all go together, you know, so I want you to think about that. You all did warm-ups. I'll just do a little bit about warming up. You know, this is going to be my warm-up because I drove pretty far. I played the Mouthpiece a little bit when I got here. And if you depend on a warm-up to be able to play, that's pretty dangerous. Because if you don't get to warm up, you won't feel really confident, will you? You feel nervous and, you know. So basically, even if you're stuck in traffic and stuff, there are things you can do to warm up. Most of them you don't need a trumpet for, like breathing and exhaling and having the right exhale, you know. Because it really doesn't matter how much air you have, even though I try to take the best breaths I can, especially the older I get. It really becomes more and more challenging to do the things that I did, you know, 20 years ago. And so I actually work on breathing in the car, because then I don't get distracted by what I sound like. Sometimes, like after like last night, I might feel a little puffy and stuff like that. But your trumpet never knows that you're puffy. You do. And that can be really a bad thing, because mentally it can be disturbing to you. And then every time you play a note, you get, you know, anticipation of failure. And that makes you definitely not feel good, and very possibly, let me shut this thing off here before, very possibly makes you not enjoy that whole session or the whole rehearsal or the whole performance. You know, so you got to get, you know, it took me a while to figure that out. And once I did that, I felt a lot better about playing and about not warming up thoroughly as I'd really want to. You know, what does really the warm-up do? I mean, I've talked about this a few times at this, and I'll mention it quickly again. When you get up in the morning, you don't just lay in bed there and go, I hope I can stand up. I don't know. I guess I should try it. See what I mean? If you start out your trumpet day that way, that's really not a good thing, because you're not concentrating on the right thing, and you've had much experience walking. It takes 2-3 steps. Even at my age, it takes me about 10 or 15 now. Everything starts to, you know, kind of not hurt, and I said, yeah, I got the right balance now. I'm ready to go. Yeah, so that's the way I kind of think of the warm up. If you can play a few notes, you're really not going to forget. If you're not a practice person, well, you might forget. You might not have ever learned what it is. You know, you might be trying to find it by the divine intervention every morning, you know. But that just doesn't work either. So basically, the warm-up is to, you know, put everything in order that's already available to you. Okay, you've used it the day before and the day before that and the day before that, so you don't have to really get really nervous about it. You just have to be able to put things in the right perspective, because you've done it many times, and that's a good thing. So it's just like all the other things that you do in your life. The things that you've done over and over again and been successful at, you don't even give it a second thought. You know, you get late at night, you're walking to your house and the light is out at the front door. You take the key out, right? You walk up the door and you put it right in the thing. You don't have to even look. You don't have to even see the keyhole, because you've done it so many times. You know exactly where it is. You know, and I think trumpet playing is a lot like that. Once you've been successful and repeated these activities over and over again, so that you don't have to be nervous. If you have a giant pimple on your lip, it's a real pain to play. We know that, but your trumpet doesn't. So if you can figure out a way to blow by all of that stuff, you know what I mean, I mean, sometimes these things are debilitating. So, you know, I'm not saying that you never, you know, you're always going to be successful, but in general, those things are not that bad. So just get to the right place as quickly as possible. So I haven't really played very much. I haven't played at all. I played 2 notes in the hallway, and I remember what it felt like last night. But I'm going to play just a couple of notes. That's a good thing to do too. You notice I played the right pitch? I don't have perfect pitch, but I got pretty good memory. You know, remembering difficult, a lot of us are really good at remembering difficult tasks and difficult patterns of events and things. Well, sound isn't really much different than that. And we can be wrong, but we can really be close. That was pretty close. See, so basically, why did the note come out? Because the memory of the sound put together all the elements that I remember because I've done it, what, thousands and thousands of times. It's a pretty good chance it's going to come out. See, so don't get real frustrated even if you miss it. You know, you're just waking up your ear. You can't warm up without your ear. If you're warming up just to feel good, you know, that might not happen that day. You know, I've gone into days where I've had to do a recording at like a time like this, where I might have played 3 or 4 hours the night before. And it's 9 o'clock in the morning. And I have to play really soft stuff, you know. I'm not saying I like it, but you know, you just have to think about putting all the elements together. If you're making a recipe, you use the same amount of everything. Otherwise, the cake doesn't turn out too good. I know from experience. Yeah. One time I tried to double this recipe, but I miscalculated. You know, man, this is like, it's like soup. Man, this is not going to make it. There's something wrong. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't remember, you know. I tried to make it, well, nothing. The thing was about that high. You know, it didn't work out. So, but if your warm-up addresses the addition or the compilation of all the elements that are important to playing a good, well-produced note on the trumpet, you're probably in the right place to start. See what I mean? Some people do expanding things. I do everything from expanding exercises. I do lip bending. You know, lip bending is a really, maybe we'll talk, has anybody done that yet? In their warm-up? I mean, in their warm-up classes here.
Yeah.
Who did it?
Dr. Walker.
Who?
Dr. Walker.
Oh, okay, he did it just last.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the lip bending thing is really good, and I don't know if he explained why, but I'll get a mouthpiece out here and place just to show you. The lip bending does a lot of things for you. First of all, I try to get exactly the same sound as I do with the right valve combination. So, here I go. And those are my first 2 notes, 3 notes, whatever, of the day. That wasn't too bad. It doesn't feel particularly good. I'm going to try to run you through my mental process so that maybe it helps you to think more clearly when you're warming up by yourself. See, because sometimes our warm-up is, oh, my lip feels bad. Let me move this, let me do this, let me try this, let me do, you know, and then of course, now you're off into like, never land, you know, you're going to be lost and you're going to feel bad. And so I don't like that to happen very often. So I did that, and I said, okay, what do I need to do? I said, well, I really wasn't supporting. I didn't take a good enough breath. You know, my first breath was kind of weak. So I'm going to make sure I really take my slow breath, and then, and it's a complete turnaround when you breathe. It's not, or something like this. Like, how many people use the tube with the ping pong ball in it, and you suck on it? and then you blow on it and it keeps the ball up. I like that. I learned a lot. I'd never used anything like that until about 10 years ago. You know, honestly, I never practiced breathing. I never practiced any of those things until I got older. And I realized that I couldn't hold a note as long. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. So I started to make sure I could get back at least towards the right feeling for me. Because everything that happens before the trumpet is much more important than what mouthpiece and horn you're playing. If you don't have it happening before the trumpet, don't bother, warming up at all, because it'll just debilitate you mentally. So practice some of those things, the breathing things. The lead pipe thing that a lot of people do, and I've professed it for quite a long time, is really good because it sets up a norm. And a norm is the most important part of your blowing. Okay? So. You do that for about 20 seconds. And what it does is, I think it really, for me, it puts the air in the right perspective. In other words, it takes the recipe and puts it in the right order. So you're not thinking about what to do, how to do it. But you have to get you have to get the right pitch. And I insist on that, and people look at me like, yeah, I don't know about this. But you have to get the right pitch, otherwise the recipe is not right. See, if you go, see that the lips are too loose, the air is backing off almost, you see? So the air always has to be holding this trumpet up like it was going to keep it up off the ground. You can't go, see, then your lips starts to take over. So now the recipe changes so the lips are tight, the air is waning, right? And you're pressing harder. We're going to do a thing this afternoon. If you can come to Taylor presentation this afternoon, it'll be very, very interesting. I guarantee you that. It's all about mouthpiece pressure, okay? And there's some pretty interesting things that come out of this. And he was surprised. And matter of fact, I'm going to help him get a lot of well-known people involved in this, because I think it'll help a lot of people if a lot of us are going around and talking about some of these things. I've been a big advocate of mouthpiece pressure for a long time. And people look at me and go, oh my God, that's heresy, But I didn't say pressing hard, So basically, this thing that I just was doing helps define the amount of pressure too. So if you're playing low C's like this, how can that get the same sound as? You can't. You never seen a clarinet player loosen up their ligature to play low C, did you? A reed is a reed. It can play from low E on the clarinet to double high C. So if you loosen that up, it just doesn't work, So basically, that doesn't mean you don't change your lips. Every book in the world says when you go high, you tighten your lips up. When you go low, you loosen them up. But it's not to make them looser and tighter. It's to keep them the same, so that the resonant surface here with the lips can act in a similar fashion and get the same sound, the same makeup of sound. You ever notice sometimes you go, man, that low C is really airy. Man, my high C feels like it's like a kazoo. It's so tight, Okay, well that's a symptom of that kind of playing, where you're playing high notes are like this, right? Low notes are out here. Yeah, and so basically you have to avoid that, because once again that's before the trumpet. The trumpet will amplify whatever good things you do and whatever bad things you do. It's very happy to accommodate you. You know, so don't blame your mouthpiece or your horn or anything like that. Mouthpiece and horn could be very, very critical after those other things are solved. Then the mouthpiece and horn could actually be very helpful to your playing. Like, I found that this horn makes me play correctly now. It keeps me, let's just say, it keeps me playing more correctly. See what I mean? So I'm real interested in that. And, so basically, now when I do this, I was a little flat for the top note the first time. So now those three notes, that's probably about 85% of the range that I have to use for the day. And then it means the pressure is similar. The production, notice I didn't let the low note go saggy. The reason I use concert E flat and F above the staff is because they connect together easily with the correct air column. Some people, you know, open it up like on that low note, and for me that's that distorts the recipe. Okay, I don't want to do that. I want to come right to the right recipe, and I can do that other thing if I have to. So it's see what I mean? So basically I never stop playing the top note. All I do is drop my jaw. The air slows down by itself. If you find yourself letting off for low C, good luck. It ain't going to happen. Not consistently. See, the more variables you have, how many people have taken like algebra? Everybody's taken it. Well, probably not anymore. They don't even let you write anymore, so I guess algebra's out too. But when you have simultaneous equations, what are they? Those are numbers, those are ones that have lots of variables, and you have to use all those variables to solve the equation. Like if you have 3x plus 2y plus z equals 7. So now you got to find out what z equals in terms of this. Then you have to find out what y equals. Then you have to plug that back in there, and by that time the piece is over. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, and you're in trouble. So basically, what you're trying to do in your warm-up is eliminate variables and play as consistently with as little amounts of things that you have to add in to get a good result. And then the result of it is that your playing is what we always call efficient. That word comes up a lot lately. Efficient, like Steve Campbell back there, he plays like about 30 gigs a week. He's always got like $1,000 in his pocket, right? And Vince, I live out in the hinterlands, Madison and I live out there, and we always wonder why there's 5 people at the light, what's going on in town. And there are no gigs out where I live. Okay, so I might play, like 1 gig a week or something, And so I only make like $100. But if Steve is playing and it costs him $50 a note, he's got 20 notes. And if it costs me $1 a note, I got 100. And I have 1/10 the money. See what I mean? So basically, that's where your warm-up is headed to. It's to create an efficient playing so that you're not wasting your natural ability to play. The lip. The lip is pretty delicate. When you're young, it's not delicate. You can take a hammer, you can bang it in your face and go, yeah, let's do that again tomorrow. No problem, man. You get up and you do it, and it sort of works. Well, you get to be in your 30s, and all of a sudden, it's not working as much like that. You get in your 40s, and you're going, I think I need to change my embouchure. And then by the time you're 50, you either fix it or you give up. And that's really you see a lot of that. And that's one of the things that I like to try to have people avoid. because I love to see people play and to enjoy playing. You know, it's worth the effort, you know, to feel like that, to get up or to play a performance and say, gee, that's the best I've ever done that, you know what I mean? Or even that's the worst I've ever done it, but it'll be better tomorrow. Yeah, so don't let that all bother you too much. But if you're having consistent lack of success, you have to be brave enough and dedicated enough to be willing to change. And that's very, very important, and it's very challenging for a lot of people because they're afraid to lose what they have. You know, but I don't know. I mean, when I was playing 6 nights a week, 5 hours a night, and it was no picnic. And my mouthpiece was going, you know, I'm surprised I wasn't playing here. And I said, wow, you know, I couldn't even do a slur from C to E in the staff. I was getting to the point where I could play the show. And I could play the show if I put the mouthpiece here. Well, great. This way, that way, C trumpet, E flat trumpet. Didn't matter. But I couldn't play anything else because it just felt terrible. So I switched my embouchure in the middle of a 5-hour job, 6 nights a week. So if I can do that, you all can do it. So if your teacher tells you that you need to make an adjustment before the mouthpiece, trust them and do it. And don't let your band director, man, you got to play first trumpet. You know, you can't do that. It's not about them. It's about you. So don't let that happen. You just say, I can't do it. I had a student that his mouthpiece was there. Like that. I don't even know how he played. But he was very serious. He was out in Western Kentucky. And I said, you know, you seem pretty serious about this, you know. Tell your band director you're going to play second trumpet the whole first semester next year. He was like going to be a junior. By the time he was a senior in high school, he was doing pretty well. By the time he was a senior at UK, he was playing principal trumpet in the orchestra and the wind ensemble. So you can do it. It's a slow, sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's very fast. Some people, for me, you know, all my friends in college used to say, well, if you played a 1C like me, you wouldn't have good range like you do. I'm going, that doesn't make any sense to me. You know, I didn't really understand. Well, it was very little I understood when I was a freshman in college, I have to tell you that, except that didn't make sense. So in the middle of my freshman year, I bought myself a straight 1, which is the 1X now. It's called 1X now, but it was a 1. And I practiced over Christmas, and I came back, and I had the same range on that I did on my 7C. Now, it didn't sound the same, so it really wasn't very effective for jazz band. You know, it really just sounded like I go, you know, it's like high F, and the whole band would bury me, you know. It was just like I'm going, yeah, but I'm right in the middle of it. Didn't sound good. Wrong equipment. Right playing habit, wrong equipment. So once again, that's the way you change your sound and things. It's on the other side of the lips. So the warm-up is really mostly for this side, the human side. So you have to be able to make adjustments to get that, because it's going to be every day, that little adjustment. So I do that, and then I'm kind of really, I say, okay, that is the position. There is no other position. There is no negotiating with the trumpet. You know, you don't take your cell phone, right, and stick it in the wall, and where it gets 35 watts, do you? It ain't going to charge. Or you say, well, yeah, well, eventually it probably charge. Yeah, but it can't run that machine. You have to have the right fuel and the right fuel pump to run this machine, period. It isn't run differently in the low register. It isn't run differently in the high register. It's all connected to what? One continuous airflow that has a certain what? Perspective to it. And then this part makes the changes. See, so when I'm playing, sing a lot. When you're warming up, sing notes, and if you get it wrong, you'll remember that, and you'll start altering that. I think I'm pretty close today. See, I never stop playing the top note. I just find all the other notes inside the top note. Does that make sense to anybody? Yeah. So if your air is going like this, in the low range you start. So you can't play that note. Sounds awful. Because you don't have the requirement in the first note. You'd have to what? Switch horses midstream. And we know that's an old thing you can't do. You can't do that. So basically we're trying to find the norm. The lead pipe is the norm. And people have talked to you about that, I'm sure, so we won't talk about it anymore. But also, and there's also a good way of checking that norm. Once you've got that, if you can't do that, don't go any further that day, because you can't play trumpet. I want you to take that and think about it. Playing trumpet is being able to move on the trumpet without the vowels. Everybody skips a lot of that. I'm not very good at lip stars. My band director my band director was the smartest guy I've ever met in terms of working with me. Okay? Because, he understood unique personalities. And he knew that my personality was like, in a sense, well, not quite as AAA as Jason back there, but it was goal orientated. Okay? Goal orientated. You showed me something I couldn't do, and that ain't going to be that way. Period. If you don't have that, your progress will be very slow. Okay? So make sure you develop that. Because trumpet, you're alone. You have to remember, you're alone 20 of the hours, hopefully, that you practice a week. So what's going on during the time you practice? It should be, the lessons are only necessary because they're good models of objective thought for you to study. You're studying your teacher's mind, okay, and how they solve problems. So if you have to take notes, I know a lot of you take notes. I know he takes less notes. Gabriel has closets full of notes. Look, he's already taking notes. It makes me nervous. A lot of people taking notes. Do take notes. Go read back on them. When you have problems, you'll see that a lot of the things people said could come into play for you. Oh, yeah, now I remember that. Yeah, okay, let me do that. So basically, I'm pretty brutal about this stuff. I am. I'm just going, well, you want to get better. You say, well, if I just keep doing it wrong, eventually it'll be right. No, you'll get really good at doing it wrong. And you'll have a harder time every month trying to do it right because you're going through wrong. Instead of stopping and saying, that does not work. What can I do? It's scientific method, right? Scientific method. The guy or gal or whatever has a beaker full of stuff, right? If I add this, bam, it blows up. They go, oh, I'm not doing that again. See what I mean? Okay, let's step back from the test tubes here. Okay, well, let me read about that a little bit. Okay, oh, I shouldn't have added that first. Oh, no wonder it blew up, right? So then you go back to that. Now it goes, shh. Well, that's better, but it almost blew up that time. See what I mean? You've got to have that in you when you're practicing. You can't just say, my teacher said to do Schlasberg. That's never going to get better. You're just going to sound like that very consistently. I guess that's all right if that's your goal. So in other words, in going back to the warm-up, your oral destination has to always be in your mind. Okay? That's going to help you move towards the right sound. Because you know what the right sound is. Personally, I used to listen about almost as many hours as I practiced a day. You know, I don't quite do that as much anymore. I might listen an hour a day now. And I used to listen 3, sometimes more. Okay? Because being a musician of any type, I don't care if you're going to be a doctor or a dentist, you're a musician too. You have to put in a full day's work. Most people work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So maybe if you work 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, everybody be virtuosic. Honestly. So think about that. Don't expect to come to a workshop like this and be transformed into something better. Just getting information that you can add to the 20 hours you spend alone a week, you know, and the other 20 hours that you spend listening. It's 40, oh, look at that, it's 40 hours, just like my dad used to work. See what I mean? It's a full-time job to get better. You know, you want to, you know, design a rocket engine. Well, I'll just, you know, throw this together and, you know, put some fuel in there and see if it takes off. We're going to get a lot of explosions that way. You know? So basically, the greatest thing about your success is you. Teacher is not successful. Teacher is a guide. And we love taking people on explorations. We love it. It is so exciting to be a teacher. And you'll all be good teachers if you take that route, because you'll know the way through the jungle. Okay? And that is a great teacher. And some of those people are also great performers, of which a lot of them are right at this camp. So you talk to them. You make sure that you get information from them, even if it's 5 words. You know? Chris Gecker says, play fresh. 2 words. I go, oh, what does that mean? See what I mean? And then you think about it, and you go, oh, that means don't put any undue stress on your playing every second you're playing. And I go, yeah, I can do that. How many people have Chris Gecker books? Okay, everybody, Q Press. I'm not even going to tell you how much money I've spent on Q Press. If my wife might find out. In that case, I'd be in real trouble. A lot more than my chops. So basically, Q Press is a great place to go. They're really relatively, they're a little more expensive than they used to be. Prices seem to have creeped up a little bit. But definitely worth it if you use an iPad. Yes?
How do you spell that?
Q, P-R-E-S-S. And you just put it in the search, and it'll come up in the website. And there's I think, almost 500 books and things for just trumpet. I think. I just look at the new things, and I go, yeah, boom, I got that one now. It's awful. But how many people know that Arvin wrote a method for the 5-valve trumpet? It's actually a 4-valve trumpet with an extended 4th valve. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I just saw it and I said, oh man, I'm an idiot. I didn't know about this book. And I got it, I started reading it, and I realized, you know, and then that meant I had to buy a Besson inharmonic trumpet from about 1900 so that I could do some of those things. Yes. And I was, next time I do this, if I do it next summer, I'll bring my matching set of Shaw disc valve instruments, F and B flat. And Gabriel will play the F, which I will never play, and I'll play the B flat, and we'll play some duets for you. They are disc valve instruments, or ones where the discs are external. The valves are actually turned like this, sort of like an A attachment on some of those old horns. You just flip the thing, and it puts it in A. Well, all 3 valves are like that on the Shaw disc valve from 1850. So, you know, that's another part of this discussion that I wanted to get to, was that most people, including probably 50% of the college teachers, have a very sketchy knowledge of the history of their instrument. And that makes you not perform as well, because performance practices are different in different periods. You know, so you know, if I played this horn in this mouthpiece, I played the Haydn trumpet concerto. There's one recording like that. It's not very good. You know, doing lip slurs for the da, 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 da. That's really pretty, but great player, but you know. So we really want to get a good beat on that, because the way you develop your sound in this time, the warm-up is a really bad word, because you don't have to warm up. It should be called a self-improvement session, really, so that every day you're trying to tune in more to the best place for you to make a sound, the best place for you to take your swing and hit the ball more accurately. See what I mean? And you have to do that in perspective of what the music should sound like. So in other words, it's just not hitting. I mean, I've played with every kind of trumpet player known to man. You know, people that play jazz, classical, chamber music, funk bands, played in almost all those kinds of groups myself. And there's pretty remarkable players, but some of them have a very narrow scope. So, and the reason, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? Except if there's anybody who can tell me what the music is going to sound like in 15 years, let me know so I can get ready for it. See what I mean? So in other words, your ability to play this thing and be flexible enough to interpret music that you haven't heard yet, because it hasn't been invented, so to speak. So the trumpet is a tool. It's not a musical instrument. It is only a tool. And as the style of the houses we build change, your techniques using that tool have to change. Even though you use the same techniques to play it, you're going to be cutting different shapes, and you're going to be making angles that are sharper or smoother, or this or that. But this has to be ready to do that. You know, and I always consider myself like, you know, a jack of all trades and a master of none, because I like to play all kinds of music, but I don't really like to practice them that much, because I don't think you should have to. I think you should be able to pick up an instrument, look at the music, in about 15 minutes, go over the hardest spots and play it. So what does that imply? That your trumpet playing has to be much more in your control than just working up a competition piece that you practice for 4 months or 5 months, and then you have to start all over because you don't have the technique or the physical part. You're just kind of memorizing a sequence of events, and sometimes you're not very, you make a lot more mistakes that way, okay? But if you sit down, I don't have perfect pitch, but I got a darn good memory. Okay? So if I pick up that horn, you think I can play the same thing? With different fingerings? Absolutely. You know I can. That's transposing. There is no transposing. Not really. I'm not half as good at transposers as I used to be, because I really don't use it as much anymore. But there was a time when I could just pick up any horn and play something on that horn, you know? Because what's the difference? And bass, anybody tuba? Anybody play tuba in here? Good. We can talk about it. If tuba players can pick up 4 different tubas and play the right notes without transposing, we certainly can do it. See what I mean? Yeah, so basically, tuba players actually have been taught more correctly than we have, because they're taught to just look at the notes and play different fingerings. And after a while, it's easy. You don't have to use different clefs, you don't have to use this interval or that, or, you know, you still have to know all your scales and all your arpeggios, you still have to know all those things. But it's put in a different perspective, you see. So you might try doing that. You might try learning. I noticed that, when I first noticed that I could do this, was when I played a piece that I really knew the intervals for. Heck, I didn't have to practice it. I play church jobs now still in just a couple of churches here. Scott Hershey is a minister. He got his doctorate at IU in trumpet. He's a fantastic player. But he's the church choir director in a big church. And he brings this music. Sometimes we play like 2 services with a rehearsal before it. So you get there for the rehearsal, and it's like 7:30 or 8 in the morning, and then the first service is at 8:30. Then you get coffee and a donut or something, and then the next service is at 11. And it's different than the first one, so in between you sometimes have to rehearse 1 or 2 pieces that you didn't do on the other service. And the second service used to be more contemporary. So these pieces would show up that were like, more contemporary sounding church music. And you might have to play like 10 high Fs in a piece, you know what I mean? And after doing that in the morning, I put this thing down and I pick up my E flat. I say, key of F. Now I'm in the key of C. I like that very much. And then what happens to the intervals? They're all further apart. You have less chance of missing notes, even when you're tired. So that's a good thing. So, and I have my piccolo trumpet. When I go to jobs, I very rarely just take my B flat or C or both. I have my piccolo in a bag. I've got a flugelhorn if it even is remotely a chance that I might need it. My C, my E flat, my B flat, my piccolo, and a flugelhorn if I think it's necessary. And all the mutes that are not on the parts. Okay, so I bring all the mutes. I bring my piccolo mutes. That sounds weird, but let me tell you why. One of the very first, we did a recording session for Cincinnati. It was Cincinnati Pops, but they weren't allowed to call it that because Kunzel wasn't the director. So it was called the Cincinnati Festival Orchestra or something. It was Mel Torme Christmas album. And the very first thing we had to play was Sleigh Ride, right? I go, yeah, Sleigh Ride, man, I know that. Cool. But the sleigh rides, I don't remember, it started. Yeah. Try to do that right off the bat. That was the very first thing. Reached over in the bag, picked up my piccolo, we did 2 takes, it was over. Back in the bag. See, so you never know when you're going to do it. And then Mel Torme arranged most of the music. See, he's a singer, and he's a really talented guy, but we had harmony mute notes that were like high Ds, high Cs, C sharps, and stuff, that were. On a B flat trumpet that's with a harmony mute stuck in there to ruin your whole harmonic series to start with. It's no fun. So, just check out my piccolo harmony mute. Great. Throw it back in the box. See what I mean? So be ready. If you have different trumpets, start buying trumpets as soon as you can if you plan on doing things professionally, because they only get more expensive. The more you wait, the more expensive they get. So if you have the ability to buy them, do it. Because you'll enjoy it. And music, the same thing goes with music. Don't copy people's music. I copy a lot of music, but I own it all. I have 15,000 entries in my library. There's very little that I don't have. And when I don't have something, I go right online, push the button, and it comes. Either it's a download now, or it's, or it's and I just got commemorative overture by Cheatham for brass ensemble, because I can't find my copy. I don't know where it is, but I had a copy, so I just ordered a new one, and we're going to do it up at Interlaken in our brass concert. But I already made PDFs of it so that I can send the music to all of the players so that they can be prepared beforehand. But when I go up there, I will take all the originals, and they will be right with me, and I will collect all of the copies at the end of the concert and throw them, unless it has my markings on it, and then I keep that one. Yeah, with the music that I own. Yeah, but buy music. One of the reasons music is so expensive today is because the publishers know you're copying the music. If they were selling 100 copies of the Canon Sonata instead of 50, it would cost maybe half as much. See what I mean? So try to buy. And when I bought the Canon Sonata, it was $4. When I bought the Tomasi, it was $8. Okay, so I don't think things are going to change much in terms of the direction that the music's going. You know, so try to buy music. Go to a Petrucci website, download all the trumpet stuff that's public domain, because we don't know how long that's going to last before somebody figures out a way to take that off the line, you know. And I copy all those things, and I put them in paper clips, and I have a box of all that stuff. And so do that. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about anything? Because I want to make sure I answer some questions. You've done really good warm-up stuff, but I wanted to give you a different perspective on whatever materials you use. Yeah?
So you kind of talked about listening to music as much as you practice.
Mm-hmm.
What are some, good things to, kind of start listening to as a
Okay,
player?
good things to listen to. Well, first of all, listen to fine trumpet playing of all types. And I think that's pretty easy to identify for all of you, because you all have tremendous interest. That's why you're here. And also identify pieces of music, specific periods of music. Even if you like rock music, listen to specific periods. If you like funk music, listen to specific periods. Because there are, when people say like funk music, they say, oh yeah, funk music, it's all the same. Well, no, it's not. There's so many different kind of perspectives to it, from both an instrumentation standpoint and trumpet function. Because we're really studying not only the sound, we're studying the function of our instrument. See, so if you're going to play. So you want to sound like Louis Armstrong, you've got to know what he sounds like. Really know. He was the very first trumpet player I ever met. I was 12. And I went to a concert, and I got to talk to him for 20 minutes. And that was like a life-changing experience. He was probably one of the greatest people that's ever lived. So, I mean, I was lucky. That's why for you all, it's really important to go to concerts too. Not just to hear, but to maybe have a chance to even talk to somebody like that, To hear them say a word. They're great people, Armando Guitarra, Vacchiano. I mean, I could go on and on about the people I've been lucky. Gabriel was really lucky to meet a lot of these people. He's starting to remember some of them when he was really little. He's going, Dad, did I meet Armando Guitarra? I said, yes, you did. He said, yeah, but all I remember is a big kitchen. And I said, that's because that's where we were, in his kitchen. He loved to cook. He cooked for everybody, and he was just the most wonderful person. And, of course, a fantastic trumpet player and musician. And if you haven't had a chance to hear opera without singing, that's an Armando Guitarra record with the Boston Pops. It has to be the oldest one, because they left out all the trumpet ones on the new release. It's him playing all opera arias that are normally sung with the same music that the opera singers used. After I heard that recording, I went out and bought all of the orchestra versions of all those things, so I could play one or two ever in my life if I had a chance. Yeah, because it's wonderful music. And then you're hearing a trumpeter's expression on a vocal piece. And we always talk about singing. So everything is an imitation of the voice. You know, so try to emulate that. Listen to videos about how to. There are so many how-to videos, and then discuss those with your teacher. Because some of them will be better than others, and you don't want to pick one that has you standing on your head and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And we know that we don't have to do most of that. Yeah, that's a good question, though. Yeah, also, I have a sheet. I'll send some stuff to Jason, and then I'll have Jason send it out to you all if I don't know if he's allowed to do that. Universities anymore, you can't even sneeze, and you're not allowed to sneeze, or they put you in confinement or something. So basically, I'll send you some of those materials so you can peruse them, and you can see there's lists in there of like a basic listening list, and there's a basic concepts list, and there's a lead trumpet lecture, and it doesn't mean jazz. Lead trumpet is a person who leads while they're playing the trumpet. The very first thing on the recording is Bud Herseth playing the beginning of the Poem of Ecstasy. How many people know how that starts? Yeah, probably about 4 or 5. Yeah, it just starts out with one note, but you hear all this twinkly stuff. Little flute, little bell, little this, little that, and all of a sudden you're I'm getting chills now because I heard him do it in Symphony Hall in Chicago. I got the last ticket available from some scalper. It was like $50, and it was like the last seat in the house. I'd pay a lot of money for that, but it was worth it was worth hearing the first note. It was worth $50. And he just came in and he commanded your attention with one note. That's a leader. Yeah. So you want to study the emotional part of music as well as the trumpet part that enables you to do that. Some people, they'll say, just think beautiful things and your trumpet will sound so wonderful. Well, we know that that's only partially true. It's a what? A concept. But if you're not doing the things that it takes you to finely tune your skills with a pencil and you're an architect, you're not going to be designing much. You know how anybody ever know somebody that went to architecture school? Okay, yeah, you know what happens in architecture school, don't you? They assign you a drawing, and if you erase something, what happens? You have to do it again. You start over, they know when you've erased something. So think about that a little bit. If you make a mistake, that's okay. Step back, start over. But go for a what? A progressive approach. If you repeat what you just did and you're hoping that it'll be better, it's not a good chance that it will be. But if you have a specific thing you're going to try, then you'll actually know what you did, and if it sounds a little better, you might want to incorporate that into your everyday way to do it, And then from that, you add another thing, just like they do with cars and planes and things, When the first car, you just about threw your back out if you rode for like a mile. You couldn't ride in it. I mean, it was like that, and a year later, Henry Ford put better springs on it. And then it just went like that. It just didn't hurt quite as bad. And it went a little faster. And the wheels were a little softer. See what I mean? So if you think of your trumpet playing, do you want to drive a Model T forever and try to get to California from here? I don't think so. And that's the way your trumpet playing has to be upgraded like that. And the listening part and the studying part go together. You can't practice technique without practicing music. You can't practice music without practicing technique. They're always working together. And the person that said that was Timothy Dockschützer. That's a quote of his, because he said that to me. And when I was lucky enough to play for him, Leonard was there too. Leonard was there. And I was really scared because I'd never played in a master class before. I'd given hundreds, and I'd never played in one. And so he asked me if I'd play one of his etudes. And actually his etude, I'll show you what sort of what it was. To give you an idea what somebody like that, who's one of the, iconic teachers. Good to just pick. This is a good thing to do, by the way. When you get to a certain point, it's really good to challenge yourself to do things. I don't know, the first time I ever had to play the Brandenburg Concerto, I was playing in a concert hall that was a little bigger than this, but the last person in the orchestra, there was a wall here, right? And that was the backstage, that little space. So I was sitting on a stool like this because there wasn't any more room. And then they played some overture, like a Mozart overture. And I couldn't play a note. There was no dressing room. There was nothing. Just me getting ready to play the Brandenburg, right? So you got to do what you got to do. But if you don't practice what you got to do, you're limiting your chances of success. And most of it has to do with our mental condition, not with our lip. So we want to make sure. So now let me see if I can make up a. There you go. I got grease. I don't have any. All right. Lips all right? No. It was a musical phrase that was done with technique. See what I mean? You can try to lip slur and sound good, but if you don't have the technique of doing that, you can't do it. And that was his reason for his new book, was you always have to incorporate both when you're practicing. There's not enough time to just practice, like, I mean, that doesn't sound like anything, except a person using a nail gun. Now, there's times when you do need to do that, but it's very infrequent in a lot of the pieces we play, So basically, you have to have that style. You have to practice the technique of doing lots of things. Okay, I have another question. I love it. Yeah?
You're starting and more freelancing, getting gigs.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is the best way to approach that?
Take lessons with the best professional in town who is already doing that. You have to be close to people who are doing that. Otherwise, they don't even know you're there. So go to orchestra concerts, meet the trumpet section, talk to people who are the finest teachers in the area, who play lots of church gigs and stuff, especially university professors. They're always playing church gigs and stuff like that. And they're always going to need a sub sometimes. So basically, if people feel that you're ready to do that, you see when David Vest came up, played? Okay, I asked him to do that. And he came and played with my big band last week, too. Because he needed to do that. Okay? Because it's the next step. See what I mean? So people know. Part of our job, once again, I'm a teacher. I don't really, the other part of it doesn't bother me at all, except that there's a point at which you have to integrate yourself into a more professional situation so that you can grow outside of what you did in college, which is good, but it's not real. The only real situations are the ones that exist in your community, wherever you are, okay? And also, another thing is, you have to be somebody that people like to be around. So all things being equal, if you have equal skills to somebody else, and one person's like, Hi, Jason. Could you pull out a little bit? It's too loud. Who wants to be around that? You know? I don't know. So basically, I'd say, don't get that person anymore. You know what I mean? But a person who's obviously there to assist the situation to be better and better. Because we have jobs. I mean, it's a job. You know, you're not an individual artist when you play in a group. You're part of a team of people. You know, we were just talking about this. I was working with somebody who plays second trumpet most of the time, and they were saying what a challenge it was sometimes when there's no permanent first trumpet. You got to guess for like the first rehearsal what you're supposed to play like, and then you have to try to learn how to do that after you've been doing something else for 15 years, and all of a sudden every week now you're having to figure out something new to do. It's very uncomfortable, you know? So basically, the quicker you can be very flexible about how to do something, the better. When I go play places with groups, it'd be easy for me to, since I mostly don't play in a section ever anymore, it'd be easy for me to say, you know, all those notes are short, or I could just play them all along, and we don't have to talk about it. I'm kind of like, I'm okay with that. The audience hears that I played it the same way they did, so that means it's good. See, that's the way I am. You know, I very rarely get involved in those discussions unless there's a reason to, unless it's, you know, very important for something to sound a certain way. But if it's not important, why make a point of it? See, so all these things, negative things, you have to turn those into positives. And you have to be around a lot. You got to be around. You have to show an interest in the music that you want to play. That's very important. If you've never been to an orchestra concert in the town where you live, and you expect to be called, I know that's not your case, but you know, how are you going to get to work? Nobody knows you're alive. Nobody even knows you play the trumpet. See, so you gotta get yourself out there. And I'm actually kind of a hermit. I don't really look to work much. You know, I like to practice. I like to play solos with groups, and I do love to play in great sections. It's really fun. I don't even like to play first anymore. I'm getting to talking to Gabriel as much as I have. I'm starting to think that I'd be a really good second trumpet player. And I make him play first all the time. That's even better. Yeah, because not only that, because what would it be for me to play second trumpet? New and exciting. There's no ego in playing too. It's all about being an asset to a certain community, whether it's second trumpet, third trumpet, first trumpet. I think my perfect job, if I was going to be a professional trumpet player, would be third and assistant first. Because then when the Pops concerts came up, the principal trumpet wouldn't have to play all of that stuff, you know. And on a bad week after a hard Pops concert, you could have one of the other trumpet players play first and second, and I could be icing down my lips, so to speak, just getting back to the condition where I would be useful to the trumpet section again. And that's what orchestras like, actually like Cincinnati and Boston, you know, the people that have extensive pop schedules should have. They shouldn't have 4 classical players in the orchestra. They should have one person that is an expert. They wouldn't waste all the money they waste hiring somebody, flying them in from who knows where, paying their hotel bill and their food and everything else. You could have had an assistant hired locally for 10 concerts with the amount you spent to bring that one person in. You know, so you don't want to do that. You want to be more efficient. So that's another thing. Go to take lessons with a person who's playing principal in a specific orchestra, and study excerpts with them. Tell them you want to play the second trumpet parts. Okay? And if you do it really well, they'll say, yeah, this lady's better than the person we got playing second now. They get sick, man. I'm calling her. See what I mean? That's what technique is that? That's the Sam's Club technique. You know Sam's Club? Some of you know that because I've said it a few times. Sam's Club technique. You got an old guy like me who works in Sam's Club, and he's right by the frozen food. Got a little table there, right? Got a little sign on it. It says Diablo shrimp. Now, me being a fan of shrimp, I gotta taste the Diablo shrimp. Because if it's easy and good, I want it. I can just pop it in the microwave, bam, I'm good. Okay? So I taste it and I go, oh man, this is great. Now they've been selling that shrimp in there for 5 years. Hopefully not the same spot. but they've been selling that brand of shrimp for 5 years. And so therefore, I've walked past it every month. I've walked past it. And I've never even given it a thought. But since it was right there, and all I had to do is pick up a toothpick and eat it. I mean, it's too tempting. Yeah. So that's what you got to start practicing the Sam's Club thing. You got to put yourself on the corner in some situation. You have to find a way in there and play duets with people that play well. And they can recognize the difference between good and excellent. And they'll want excellent. They want to be playing with excellent people. And if you're a first trumpet and you find a really great second trumpet, you never want them to go away, ever. Because that's very rare to find a great second trumpet. The trumpet players will go, yeah, I'm second, but I could do that other part better. Yeah, I don't think so. Because you're second. You play second, that's what you do. And you cut off the rest because that's not what you're doing. So anyway, how about one more question and then I'll play maybe a part of a movement for you. Right away. Right mouthpiece. Okay. No more questions? All right. Good. I'll play a little bit of maybe I'll play the hard piece, the hard movement. Now, this is another halfway house thing for me. This piece, I play it at least every other master class. But I never play the same movements, and I never practice it. And it's transposition. So it puts me in a performance situation that I might be in. So it puts me in not a bind, but it puts me in a spot. See what I mean? You have to do that for yourself. If you play one recital a year, it's pretty hard to be successful. You know, if you get up on a stage every month, you got a pretty good chance of having a good recital, or playing well in an ensemble in a kind of a solo capacity, or playing a solo with an orchestra or band or jazz band or something like that. So you have to put yourself in a situation. I tell people I like to play a solo every week. And that could mean showing up at my wife's church, and the organist goes, oh man, I'm glad you're here. This is great. We're going to do this hymn, and we'll just improvise it on it, all right? Okay. And then he just plays, and I make up things to go with it. And I have the hymn tune, but I don't have the chord changes he's playing. So you have to make sure that you're listening really well. So I'll play a little bit of this thing. I don't know if I can play the whole thing. We'll find out. This is the second of 4 miniatures. Matter of fact, let me play the last one. That's the hardest one. Why am I doing the hardest one? Not to impress you, but to test myself. It has nothing to do with that. It's to test myself after playing like I did last night. To see if I can play as softly as I need to play in this piece. Maybe so I can judge my next situation that I'm going to have like that. Maybe I'd choose to do less of something or more of something else. See what I mean? Because you're learning scenarios your whole life. Everybody knows what it's like to play the space show and the movie show, and then get up and play. Da, 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 da. The next morning is no fun. It's no fun. And you're doing the concerto for some piano or violin player, and you can't play soft. It's really rough. So anyway, I'll play this. This is the fourth movement of 4 miniatures by Edward Hoffman. I should have blown this up. But you can see how challenging it is, right? There's no rest. You still have to play the whole range of the instrument. So that's where going back to where we started. That's why the warm-up is so important. That's why you have to address the whole range of your instrument and how you use your air before you even blow on the trumpet. Okay? And I want you to think about that as being the fourth movement, where 3 other movements are just as hard as that. Yeah, so that's why people like Håkan Hardenberger, Jens Lindemann, I mean, he's pretty remarkable. I mean, he does funny stuff and everything, and plays, kind of flashy pieces. But that guy, he practices like at least 3 hours a day, even when he's on the road. When he wasn't here the other day, he said, why isn't he around? I don't see him. He was practicing for something that he has to do 2 weeks from now. And the only time he had to practice was then. And you gotta do it. See, and that's great. See, but once again, that's one of those people, right? You only see what I just did. You only hear what I just did. But you don't know what goes into that. Now, how long has it been since I played that, do you think? This particular movement? Probably a year. How many times have I looked at it? None. And I transpose it too, right? So that should be an exposition of skills for you to think about. Okay? And I don't even do this anymore. Meaning, I don't consider myself to be a professional trumpet player like I used to be. Because I get to choose what I do. See what I mean? So my skills are a little dulled from where they used to be. I didn't make any mistakes that time, but I mean, could happen any moment, especially when you get over 70. You don't know what you're thinking anymore. Well, why did I come in this room? I don't know. You know? So you all have grandmas and grandpas, right? Yeah, you know, and you start to notice that they stop and they're trying to figure out which room to go into. You know, that's me. But with the trumpet, I think that's been a good thing for me too, because it allows me to constantly engage in pretty serious thought and concentration for long periods of time, like 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. You know what I mean? Most people can't concentrate for 3 minutes. So a musical instrument is a great thing. How many people have noticed that a lot of professionals of different types play musical instruments? Yeah. Like dentists, doctors, lawyers, they don't. They're too busy making money to play instruments. You know, people that do professional things. And I mean even a person that builds houses. There's a skill there, you know, in using them. A lot of these people play instruments because it relates closely to the kind of things they do, but it's more relaxing than what their regular job is, but they still use those same kinds of skills, but only it's a sonic experience rather than. Okay, so you're basically you're experiencing something different, and you go back and you're just as happy being a carpenter or a dentist or I don't know anybody could be happy being a dentist. I mean, I was going to be a dentist, by the way. That was my field, and I was apprenticing at my dentist's office, which is across the road in the better housing section than where I live. And he said, yeah, you can come on over and watch what I do. So I get the white coat on, you know, and I bring him they had to sterilize things. They didn't throw them away then. You actually sterilize them and use them again. But I bring the stuff to him, and he said, yeah, look. Man, there was stuff flying out of these people's mouths. I never really realized that, you know, when I was getting I said, you know, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't think I want to do this, you know, like 7 or 8 hours a day. So I told my mom, I said, you know, Mom, I think I'm going to go into music. And said, okay. You're not upset because I'm going to go into music and not be a dentist and make a lot of money? No. I said, well, how come? Well, you always work hard at everything you do. Why would I think that you're not going to be successful doing that? Oh, okay. You can tell Dad. But that was true. That's very true. So yeah, just think about what you want to do. First of all, and lastly, this, in spite of what you might think on any particular day, is a wonderful way to spend the day. I've done it for 58 years. I probably should be a lot better. But you know, it's a life's journey. It's wonderful to have something that you're familiar with, and you can continually try to improve, and you can love to listen, and love to be part of what other people are doing musically. You know, I just think we're very privileged to be able to play instruments and play music, And stand up, if you're not going into music, make sure you always stand up for your local orchestras and bands and jazz bands and people that teach music, because they make the world a better place. I'll tell you, the people I know, gosh, wonderful teachers. I look at all, like I say, all the faculty that are here, and I go, wow, all these people are so good. You know, they're so good at what they do, and they're so dedicated. And dedication is something that you'll be proud of in the future. When you stop playing, you're done playing. Okay? When you teach, what you do goes on for generations, and they do it better than you do. That's exciting. That's really exciting to know that you've done something that has changed the perspective of a lot of people's lives without being there. It goes on so great, and it's a good reason to go to things like this for me, and hopefully for you all to tell your friends about things like this, and meeting. How many have made so many new friends just being here? You know, so that's a great part of it. So enjoy. And thanks to Jason and all the faculty. And pretty soon you're going to be Yenzathoned, I think. Right? Is he here? He's ready to make his grand entrance. Tell him to come in here.
Thanks, Ed.
Yeah, thank you all.